This week, Parshat Vayachi, we take leave of Sefer Bereshit. We are finishing all of these stories about the Avot and all of the narratives that we have been unpacking in regards to the founding fathers and the founding mothers of our nation. But I think this week the Torah speaks to me in ways that I didn't think it would till today. What happened on October the 7th, many times since, I've dreamt of procuring the DeLorean time machine from Back to the Future, one of my favorite films. And I keep returning to Yasmin Mualem. She's a popular Israeli artist, singer. She wrote a song 6 months ago called Tov. And I keep returning to that song. It was released 6 months ago, but it's taken on a whole new significance since October the 7th. And teenagers, including my daughter all over Israel, have been playing it on repeat. Tov, it will be okay. It will turn out to be okay. And I wonder whether, as part of human nature, we crave happy endings. Is that why Hollywood's so successful, right? Is that why, as I discovered when I did my Holocaust research from Holocaust theology, that perhaps the Holocaust narrative made a breach into the American consciousness, this kind of sugar-coated American consciousness after the 1967 war, when the happy ever after seemed actually to be a viable end to the story. This outlook, though it satisfies a deep-rooted yearning for certainty in the goodness of reality, where good prospers and evil is defeated, it rarely works that way. Life doesn't. And we have to ask a very interesting question, whether or not the eschatological vision of religion, this messianic vision of religion, nurses this unrealistic outlook. Do we set ourselves up for despair when our dreams don't become a reality? And I believe this week's Parshat Vayachi addresses this question and answers it in a rather unexpected way. In 3 separate but interwoven incidents, it teaches us that part of being human means living with the unknown, with the uncertainty and the unexpected, and yet acting as responsible members of a covenantal partnership anyway. Incident 1, in the opening paragraphs of the Parsha, Yaakov speaks to Yosef and he relays 3 pieces of information. First, he recounts God's promise of the land. Second, he makes mention of Manasseh and Ephraim being born without his knowledge. And third, he recalls the death of his beloved wife, Rachel. I think these 3 elements of Yaakov's monologue underscore the tension of his life, in particular, and our existence as a nation in general. He begins with the certainty of the divine promise, and he ends with the personal tragedy of his life, the death of his beloved Rachel. And in the middle of these 2 things, these 2 bookends, he mentions Manasseh and Ephraim, his grandchildren that he never knew existed, the hope, the unknown, the promise of a better tomorrow, the future, the story that was being told without his conscious knowledge of its existence. And while Yaakov mourns his beloved wife and bewails the death of his oldest son, unbeknown to him, in a parallel reality, he has grandsons being born, life that's continuing, his legacy being nurtured. For Yaakov, Yosef is dead, but in reality, he's alive. Death and life, past and future, knowing and unknowing, all being played out at the same time. Our reality is not always how we perceive it to be. Hope is what allows us to imagine on all possible outcomes and endings. That's one part. The second event is when Yaakov comes to the end of his life, and knowing his death is near, he gathers his sons around him. And the Torah recounts for us a very interesting thing that happens. V'yikra Yaakov el banav v'yom ha'esifu v'yigidu lachem et hasher yikra etchem b'acharit hayamim. Come and gather around me, and I will tell you what will happen to you at the end of days. It seems that Yaakov is going to give over some prophecy about ending. He's going to tell his sons that in the end, kol yeh tov, everything will be okay. And he gathers them round and he wants them to hear. And then we're told Reuven, In the end, he actually begins, we don't hear what happens. He goes on to bless, some say even give curses, or at least show each of his children their strengths and their weaknesses. He goes on to speak to each child. It seems that it's taken away from him. He wanted to tell them what's going to happen in the end of days. He wanted to relay a messianic eschatological vision, and it was taken from him. Rashi says that the Shekhinah leaves him and he's stopped. And the question is, why is Yaakov denied from revealing the end, the happy ever after, this messianic vision? Why? The message is clear. The end is less relevant than the means. The dream of redemption can only be brought about through the effort of human fear, only through nurturing our traits, honing our character, the character of each of the tribes. And I think more than anything else, more poignantly, is that we cannot and must not know exactly how and when redemption will occur. Because the experience of living with uncertainty, nursing a perspective of hope and effort despite that uncertainty, that is the quintessential religious and human challenge. It's in the pain and the cries of today that is born the hopes and dreams and action that will build a better future tomorrow. We don't just simply wait for it to be given to us. The third and final event that happens is that Yosef requests for his bones to be taken out when the people leave Egypt. In my mind, this is implicit. It's kind of an implicit fulfillment of Yaakov's request to reveal the end of days. Yosef seems to achieve what Yaakov was denied. He turns around and he says, you will come out of exile. You will leave Egypt. And when you do, you will take my bones with you. Of all of our ancestors, it's Yosef that knows best what it means to live with uncertainty and triumph against all the odds. He's learned the art of patience, of process, of a limited vision, but an enormous dream. He doesn't know what his father is thinking, what his brothers are thinking, what their motives are, what was happening. He continues and he nurtures the values from which he was born into. He interprets humans' actions, events. He never relies on miracle. He takes the future into his own hands. He understands, much like we said last week, the butler who takes agency of his life. He understands that those, like the baker, remain passive, die a death. But those that are active live a life. He holds tight to his values. And this allows him to be instrumental in the final unification of the brothers. He could have harbored resentment, understandably, but instead he forgives them, and that ensures they forgive themselves. As they step into exile, he ensures their unity, and therefore the people have to carry his bones to remind them of who Yosef was and what he represents. They have to know that they will endure suffering. They will also need to nurse the dreams of a better tomorrow. They will need to utilize their strength, their potential, their agency in order to bring redemption. This is our parsha, and I think today more than ever, it holds such an important message about the key to our survival. No, it's not a Hollywood dream. No, we're not going to be given the DeLorean time machine so we can go to sleep for a few years and come into a better tomorrow. No, it is not that we know that everything is going to end well. The end is not revealed. The uncertainty remains a central part of their exile experience and our experience at the present moment. But through Yaakov and Yosef, we are given intimations of what the key to our survival is. And that isn't to live in a metaphysical detached reality, but rather to make a blessing on our life in the here and the now, to use our strengths, harbor our qualities, harbor our agency to create a better world for tomorrow and build a future. Our Manasseh and Ephraim, our future is there. Maybe it's being played out in a reality we don't understand. But we need to act, remain united, just like Yosef united the brothers. We need to remain united. Know that we have to act in this world and create a better place for justice and good, where we know that a better tomorrow will finally reign. Wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom, and may we only hear good news.